So let's take a moment here just to understand what a guideline is and how to interpret a guideline. So guidelines, ultimately, what are they trying to do? They're trying to do what all of us are trying to do, is take a massive amount of information and try to find signal, right? Amidst all this noise, amongst all these hundreds and hundreds of articles that are out there, and trying to find some sort of signal. There are various approaches, so things that you can use. If you're looking at checklists, there are various approaches you can use to actually look at how we can limit bias in the development of it, and also as a checklist for evaluating the quality. There are multiple ways in which you can check. One particular tool is called the agree tool. So in this particular case, there are areas that you want to look for. So for every guideline, you have to make sure to ask yourself, is there a scope and purpose that's clearly identified? Do we know what this guideline is aiming to do? Who are the stakeholders? In other words, is this guideline only being developed by individuals from one viewpoint, or are they including a variety, including patients, in the development? And what's the extent to which they've been engaged in this guideline? How rigorous was it developed? In other words, what's the process they used to gather evidence, to interpret evidence, and ultimately, did they provide those methodologies to you as the reader? How clearly is it presented? Is it actually presented in a way that makes sense and actually is a way that you can understand it? Because a guideline can be the best guideline in the world, but if they can't communicate the messages in a useful way, it will not be adopted. Is it applicable? Are the recommendations in context with the potential barriers and limitations? Is there something we can do to ultimately implement these? And is there some pathway that they've provided to implement some of these changes? And finally, look at the editorial board. Really look at the editorial board of these guidelines and say, who actually developed them? And what are their potential competing interests? And have they declared or disclosed any potential biases? It is impossible, if not implausible, to have any group of individuals without bias. So there's always going to be bias. There's always going to be some degree of conflict. The truth of the matter is going to be is that conflict going to interfere with their ability to give you, the reader and the consumer, a message that you can believe?